Good evening and welcome to Midwest Mountaineering's 70th Outdoor Adventure Expo. We've been doing the Outdoor Adventure Expos for 35 years, and 2 a year we had to skip the one last spring due to the pandemic. And this year all of our presentations are virtual, so you can see them in the safety of your own home. I am Rod Johnson.
And I'm Sharon Johnson, and we're happy that you're here on our virtual presentation. This year, as Rod was saying, we're trying to do a virtual expo. And this is, I think, Rod and my second virtual presentation. We're just kind of really getting going on having all of our expo presentations virtual. So bear with us if we have some technological glitches. We will get through them, and we will talk about some fun in Patagonia.
The expo is 20 days this year instead of 3, so we're spreading them out over 20 days, and November 6th to the 25th are the dates, and the expo sale prices will be good all of those dates.
So yeah, come on down. We are spacing everyone out. We are controlling the number of people in the store. We do require that everyone, including employees, wear masks. Here's my mask. And so we're taking all the precautions that we can. We want you to shop safely. If you have to wait a little bit outside, at least the weather's nice. So we're looking forward to seeing you at the store as well.
On Saturday, the 14th of November, we are having some exhibitors outdoors, just a few of them with their pop-ups for social distancing. So if you want to talk to some exhibitors, we will have maybe a dozen or so here on Saturday, the 14th.
Okay, should we talk about Patagonia?
Yes.
All right. Why don't you do a little bit of an introduction?
Sure. There are dozens of great places to go close to home in the summer. But in the winter, where there's very little daylight, if you want more daylight, you need to go to the southern hemisphere. And Patagonia is one of the most exciting places with the most spectacular scenery that you can go. And the prices are fairly reasonable, probably about comparable to what you would pay right here.
We made this trip, we just remembered, in 2007, 2008. So, you know, we're trying to be as current as possible, but this is the pictures are from our trip in 2002, 2007, 2008. You can see behind me, that is Cerro Torre, or that is Monte Fitzroy, right?
Yes. Right
behind me. That's part of where we went on the trip, and that is up here, if you can see on the map, up in Argentina. Patagonia itself is the southern tip of South America, so we're going to head down here. We flew down to Santiago in Chile, and then we flew from there down to the southern tip of South America in Puntarenas. For some reason my slide doesn't want to advance. There we go. We flew down here to Santiago and then here to Puntarenas. And we are headed for Torres del Paine National Park, where we're going to do a circuit hike, and then we're going to go up here to Monte Fitzroy.
And these are probably the two most spectacular areas in Patagonia to visit.
We were planning on doing a number of things. We wanted to stay in some local hotels. We wanted to do some backpacking and sleeping in a tent. We also wanted to stay in a refugio, and we also wanted to stay in one of the osterias in the national park, just so you could get an idea of the various kinds of accommodations when you're there. We did not rent a car. We took buses for every place we went. It worked very well as long as you coordinate your schedule with the bus schedule. And bear in mind that sometimes across country lines, there's a time change. We sort of forgot that part on one thing and had to catch another bus. But busing around the area is certainly doable.
This is my third trip to Patagonia. And since I keep coming back, I must obviously love the area, and I would love to go back again.
So as I said, we flew through Santiago, and then from Santiago down to Puntarenas. Our luggage did not make it with us for various reasons, it stayed over in Santiago. So we settled in and went up from Puntarenas to Puerto Natales, which is kind of our jumping off point for heading for Torres del Paine. And now we are staying at the Juan Yadrilleros hotel and waiting for our luggage. Puerto Natales is a fun little town, lots of things to do. We had some time to fill while we were waiting for our luggage and our backpacking food. And here is the view from the Yadrilleros hotel. That's the Seno Ultima Esperanza, which is, I think, means the sound of last hope. And we found in the southern tip of Patagonia that everything is kind of the last hope or the end of the world. Those kinds of expressions are meaningful down there. It is the end of the world. The scenery is grand and beautiful, and this was a fine place to spend a few days waiting for our luggage. Oh, by the way, if you have questions, you can type them into the chat window that you'll see on the website. And Adon is helping us with our technical setup here. And if you type your question, Adon will let us know what your questions are. So we're happy to answer questions as we go along. OutdoorAdventureExpo.com. The website is OutdoorAdventureExpo.com.
If you go to the website and click on our description, it'll give you a PDF you can click on for our handout. And it would be, if you're considering going, it'd be very worthwhile to print that handout. It has a lot of great information on going to Patagonia.
Yeah, what we try to do with handouts is kind of say, this is where we went, this is what you can expect, this is where we stayed, and this is what we did. So you can at least have the option of seeing what we did on this trip. If you have any other questions, though, we're happy to try to help out. And Adon, as a matter of fact, has spent a very long time in South America, including Patagonia. Would be more than happy to answer your questions about traveling to that part of the world. So either send in your questions on the chat or give us a call. Back to this picture. This is breakfast in our little hotel as we're waiting for our luggage to arrive and our food to arrive. And then we decided to explore Puerto Natales. And here is a typical street scene. We always like to go to check out the outdoor stores, of which there are many. Puerto Natales is kind of an outdoor town, a jumping off spot for a lot of these kinds of adventures. And if you forgot to bring something, you can certainly pick it up here. The one thing you cannot travel with is canisters of fuel. And we were having a hard time finding
white gas, Coleman fuel.
Yeah, the white gas was in short supply, but we could definitely find canisters of butane. As I mentioned, our food had been packed. Here's another outdoor store. Our camping food had been packed in our luggage. And I wasn't thinking very carefully about when I packed camping food, and I brought some dehydrated hamburger in a Ziploc bag, which looked like maybe a different kind of substance.
And maybe some powdered milk you brought.
And I brought some powdered milk in another Ziploc bag, which also was, thinking back, rather foolish because neither one of those arrived with our luggage when it finally did get there. We waited, I don't know, 4 days?
So I think even longer than
a long time until and waiting for our backpacking food and a little bit of gear to finish arriving. And it did not arrive. And we just decided, fine, we're going to go to the grocery store and shop for whatever we need and just take that. So we wound up eating the dreaded ramen on our backpacking, but it turned out okay. This is a little place to spend some time in Puerto Natales, nice little coffee shop. A lot of excellent restaurants, and Paria, it's pretty hard to beat the grills in this part of the country.
Lots of grilled lamb.
Yeah. This is Jorge at Don Jorge Restaurant. And as you can see, we wandered around town waiting for our luggage and our food, taking a few art shots, but it's a beautiful, beautiful place.
It used to be a fishing village, and now I think it's mostly a tourist village.
Mm-hmm. So finally, we quit waiting for our food to arrive, and we decided to head for Torres del Paine National Park, which was kind of the meat of the sandwich, where we wanted to go. We are starting down here in Puerto Natales. We're taking a bus all the way up here. This must have been, what, a 4 or 5 hour bus
About
ride.
right.
Good jaunt. Beautiful scenery though along the way. We're headed up here to Torres del Paine National Park. And this is where we are going to do our circuit hike around Torres del Paine. This is coming into the park. This is a bridge. We were on our bus. That's the passengers of the bus walking over the bridge. They asked us to please get off and walk over the bridge. And then they drove the bus through the bridge. And here's why they wanted us to get off and walk, just in case they kind of couldn't get through.
I couldn't believe that that bus would actually be able to cross that bridge.
It almost looks like it's not going to make it, but it did. This is the Osteria Las Torres, and this is where we decided to stay the first night. It is absolutely the right spot for having some fun in the park. It sits right here. And this is the circuit hike that we're going to take. It's about 52 miles. And in this section of it, you can see a shape that looks kind of like a W. It's referred to as the W. We are going to hike up this leg of that W and see Torres del Paine, which is right here. And then, so the first thing we're going to do is this little short hike to go up and get a close-up view and a picture of Torres del Paine. And then when we finish that, the circuit hike that we're going to do, the 52-mile circuit hike, is right around here. We'll hike the hike and come down here, end up at Lago Dixon, and take the ferry across the lake. I'll show you the Osteria, though. This was a very pleasant place to stay. And as is usual in a site like this, there are people there from all over the world. This is our little room. And there's always a lot of good camaraderie with fellow hikers. These are all outdoor people. And it's really fun to spend some time in the restaurants and in the refugios, meeting people and seeing where they've been. This is there, the Torres del Paine, right there. This is a gorgeous picture I stole from the internet, which shows you the topography of the area that we're in. Here's the lake down here that we're going to, where's Payway? Right here? Maybe here. That we're going to take the ferry across, and then around here is the circuit hike, and we're going to come down along this gray glacier. So that kind of gives you an overall view of what the topography looks like. Here's a better shot of that section of the hike that I referred to as the W. We are staying right here. We're going to get up in the morning and we're going to head up here and take a look at the Torres del Paine. It's the beginning of that walk. Looks like it was a beautiful day. What time of the year was this?
I think it was the first part of January.
So I've got a shirt, not even a jacket on. So, but I am wearing gloves. Might have been a little bit cool.
I think it's around the 51st parallel of latitude. It's further south. It has a higher latitude than we have in Minneapolis.
And you won't be alone on this hike. This is a very popular hike. Kind of see, we're going to come along here. There is a refugio part of the way along in this hike. So we're going to cross this bridge, head for the refugio, and have lunch. And once again, this is one of those places where you're going to find a lot of people with interesting conversations. I think we met, maybe this young couple was from Great Britain, and we're spending a lot of time running around the world. There's also a tent camp right at that spot.
This weather was extremely pleasant when we were out hiking this day. When I was here a previous time, the wind was so great, it would almost blew us off the trail. It was gusting up to 80 miles an hour.
I think a windy situation is pretty typical down there. It's in the roaring 50s, and a lot of wind is kind of to be expected. And we certainly experienced our share of that wind. In order to deal with that, my recommendation is that you bring a bandana along and you have sunglasses that really kind of sweep back a little bit to help keep dust out of your eyes. Now we're actually headed up. There's a little bit of scrambling going on here to head up to the the Torres, not a whole lot though. And there they are. It was kind of hard, I have to admit, to get a picture without a lot of people in it. But it's well worth the hike up there, absolutely beautiful. At glacier fed turquoise lakes. And there's the picture you go there for. That's the one. It's a magnificent sight. So we finished that hike. We went over and had, I think, dinner, and this is the Refugio right next to where you start the circuit hike. We did not sleep there, but we did pop in for breakfast. That is right here. And we're gonna head up this section for Campo Cerrón. Once again, that same map, we're headed up this way. There's the beginning of the hike. We're planning on hiking, obviously 4 hours today. That's kind of handy to let you know that. Once again, looks like nice weather, clear sky. And here's the first part of that hike, very different. Each segment of the hike is very different topography.
Those are calafate berries, which are edible. They taste good, but they have lots of seeds in them.
This is our first camp. You can see it's pretty good size one, a lot of people there. This one, and if you do this kind of traveling, I'm sure you've had this kind of experience. So we ran into a couple of young women who were hiking this trail. They were from Germany, and we were visiting with them. And one was headed up to Minneapolis to attend the wedding of a friend of my daughter. And so we sent along our greetings, and they became Facebook friends forever. There's our little tent set up. That was a nice little single wall, was it Black Diamond tent?
Yes.
Yeah. You don't need a whole lot, at least at that time of the year. The weather, you need enough to keep the rain off, but you don't need anything seriously mountaineering. This was a pretty lightweight little tent, single wall.
The most fun thing about this campsite was Zorro.
Oh, here he is. Yes, he was kind of.
Zorro is the Spanish pronunciation of our fox.
He was very aggressive. He was used to being fed, and he didn't mind his picture being taken. And then I always like to comment on this. Mr. Ultralight decided that he probably could fit this into his ultralight allowance for the trip. A little bit of red wine on the trail.
It's some of our grocery store provisions.
Not a lot of wildlife. We saw the fox, and we're seeing this guy right here, but we really didn't see much in the way of wildlife. So we're headed on to our next destination, which is Refugio Dixon. A little bit more cloudy weather today. Probably about the same distance.
Maybe even a little bit further. And there it is.
And we're coming up to Lago Dixon, and you can see here in the distance, that's the Refugio that we're headed for. It's also a campground there. It's the Dixon Glacier behind it. This picture I took, it's looking back from the Refugio when we arrived there. So what we have just done is walked along this ridge right here, which was spectacularly beautiful. And then you hike down this trail here into the flat area of the lake and the Refugio. Quirky looking and very cozy. Actually, we had this room to ourselves. We have a question?
Altitude sickness.
What was the altitude here?
It was not high because the highest points are, they start pretty much at sea level. So I think the highest point where we were hiking is
a pass,
probably 3,000 or 4,000 feet. So there was no trouble at all with altitude sickness.
As I was saying, this is a bunk room in the Refugio. We had it to ourselves. It was very cozy for the night. And this was the view of Lago Dixon in the evening. There's a little campground right next to Refugio. And this is, it shows the year that we were there. This is the price list of the what's available at the Refugio. You can actually, you can buy breakfast and dinner. You can buy snacks. It's got camping fees. Obviously, these are 2007, 2008 prices.
But when we were there, you would get 1,000 pesos for $1. So the first item is 15,000 pesos, and it converted to $15 US.
I would say get on the internet and update your prices. Plenty of horse options around. This is really the only time we saw horses packing, but you can certainly horseback there. Lots and lots of rivers to cross. So after the night at Refugio Dixon, we're heading for Los Perros, the river and the campground. So we're going to cross this river. Looks a little sketchy, but that's the real bridge right there. It's a beautiful hike along the Los Perros River. And you can see the terrain's a little bit different this side of the trail.
Los Perros Glacier.
Mm-hmm. And here is our campground. You'll have plenty of company. There's plenty of services. Another question. Reservations for the refugios. You can do your reservations online. And we did have reservations before we left. I don't know that you can roll the dice, but I would definitely get online and reserve your refugios.
I believe we were there though when we had our reservations. We were in Patagonia.
We did it in Patagonia. We tend to do this kind of thing a little bit more on the fly. I'm not sure how lucky we were. Obviously for anything like this, you're best off to reserve them as long in advance as you can. And I'm not sure if there are more or less demand for them now. I think you could probably find out those things online as well, but I would plan on reserving as far in advance as possible.
Some people will go with a group too, and the group would have a guide and the guide would take care of that. Although we just did it on our own, which is what we usually do.
Yeah, this is an easy trip to do on your own if you don't mind doing the extra legwork.
No, I think we have another trekking in Patagonia program in a week and a half or so, about 10 days from now. So you might want to check the schedule for that program too. And I think that's a trekking company that's doing that one. So they would take care of all the Refugio reservations and everything if you went with the trekking company. And you'd probably get generally a little bit better quality food too.
Probably. So now if you notice, the first part of the hike was pretty much open land, and now we're kind of into a forest, treed forest along the river. Glacial fed river. At this point, I think we were kind of trying to educate people about the jet boil and how convenient it is. So we stopped in the middle of the day to make some coffee right on the trail and then popped the jet boil right back in the pack and kept going. The trail can get interesting sometimes. Sometimes you're having to pick your way through a wet area, which is what's going on here. You want a good pair of footwear for this with a nice solid sole on it. A lot of change in what's going on in the track of the trail. And now we are headed for the high point of this circuit, which is Paso John Garner. And the pass is right about up here. You can kind of see the trail coming down here. It's as I mentioned, the elevation, the highest elevation on the trail. You're going to see glaciers up close and personal for sure. I think that's still Los Perros. And if you look carefully, you can see people threading their way up the trail here, headed for the pass over there. And there is the summit of the pass. I'm pretty bundled up there. I'm thinking that must have been kind of windy and maybe even wet. That's my raincoat stuffed with something different.
I see the pass is 3,881 feet. So that was the high point for the person concerned
Yeah.
about altitude sickness.
Yeah, the elevation change is enough to give you a good workout, but it's not serious altitude. And this is the Gray Glacier. You're going to walk down the western side of this trail all along the Gray Glacier, and it's beautiful, beautiful views. Here again is a good example of why you want real good solid footwear with a nice sturdy sole on it, because there's a lot of rock hopping and various kinds of trail to deal with. And also, we happen to be big fans of hiking poles.
And I had my left knee going out on me. I had it replaced the next year, total knee replacement. So I was actually using my hiking poles as kind of crutches to get by.
They also help distribute the weight of your pack. We try to not carry very much weight, but still when you're coming down a steep slope like this, or when you're going up, it's nice to distribute that weight a little bit. You can help do that with your hiking poles. It'll take some of the strain off your back and your hips. You'll sleep better. They also operate as another couple points of contact. So if you do lose your footing, you've got another point of contact to help prevent a fall. Although sometimes you'll have handrails and steps. More spectacular scenery. That's that Gray Glacier.
Now, the largest ice cap in the world, of course, is Antarctica. The second is Greenland, and the Patagonia ice cap is the third largest. So there's a tremendous amount of ice in the Patagonia ice cap. It's just miles and miles and miles of millions of tons of ice.
You know, if you see this picture and the one before, this is the Gray Glacier, and I'm talking about how incredibly beautiful it is, and that's a fun picture, and that's a fun picture of it. But as is always the case with pictures like this, you really have to be there. It just doesn't do it justice. I mean, it's very nice for me. We always enjoy doing these shows because we get to relive these trips, but it does remind me that a picture is not nearly the same as being there. It's so worth it to be there. Here's another example of some of the kind of trail you can expect there. I'm not so sure how happy I look crossing that little log across the river. So we've crossed the pass now, and we are headed for, what's the name of the next campground?
I think it's the Guardia.
At this point, we're kind of tired. You know, whenever you go over a pass and you got some long trek down, we're probably getting tired. I see we have a little river to cross here. I think this pole right here is marking a suggested crossing.
There may have been a rope across there somewhere, but it involved some rock hopping.
It did involve some rock hopping, and there's no picture of either of us doing it. Well, we made it. Then you got to climb up the hill. Only this is the real ladder you go up. I think that's me going up the ladder. It's kind of fun. They left the old one there. Now we're back up higher on the trail with a good view of that glacier. Other question? What kind of hiking poles do we like?
Well, my favorites are the shock-corded black diamond ultralight poles that it's like a tent pole, it's shock-corded together. Then there's the telescoping poles that are probably even more popular. Once in a while, you'll get one that will collapse on you. The mechanism fails more often, and then the shock-corded ones are lighter too. But I think what's really important is that you have at least one pole for balance and stability.
Yeah, I think some things to think about are, one concern is, can you take those poles on an airplane? And those shock-corded, is it black diamond?
Yes.
The shock-corded black diamond poles collapse down to pretty small. You can actually fit them in your suitcase. So if you have a carry-on, you can get them on. They don't seem to frighten the people at the gate at the airport. The longer ones, you may have to check separately. The other thing about the shot corded ones is if they come in a fixed size, they're not going to collapse on you. I happen to like that feature. There are some that have a variable size, and there's some advantage to that, but occasionally they will kind of slip loose. I think my recommendation would be buy the lightest weight pole that you can, because you're going to appreciate that lightweight, and then consider whether you're going to be flying with them. Do you really need a collapsible one? Because I think that's the main advantage of the collapsible pole. A fixed length pole is fine if you're never going to need to collapse it. It's not going to ever collapse on you. So I'd consider the collapsibility and the weight.
The Lakey hiking poles are also very good.
Yeah, we have a kind of a range of them. Really what you should do and what you can do if you come to the store is just try out some different ones. Try to even take them outside, try to go up and down some stairs or some terrain, see how they feel in your hand. Our camping department employees can kind of help you with what the various options are. But they're a very, very good attribute to hiking. They're really helpful. All right, where are we now? We are still coming down along the Gray Glacier, and we are headed for...
Yeah, I think that was the tail end of it.
You can kind of see the snout right here. That's the end of the glacier right there. This is our campground for the evening. It was pretty Spartan. Wardia, I think, was the name of it. And actually, it's not that far from the next refugio, which is Refugio Gray. And I kind of wish we had stayed there.
I wished we had too, but my knee was kind of bothering me, which is why we took the closer one.
Well, yeah, sometimes you just got to stop. Once again, another shot of the glacier. This is Refugio Gray. We did stop there because we had met some people there, and we decided to stop and say hello. We knew we'd catch up with them there, but that's what I got a chance to see it, and it's kind of looks like a good place to stay. There is also a campground next to Refugio Gray. As we were coming out of this area, we walked through this incredible valley that was just full of these blooming foxgloves, just incredibly gorgeous. Here's a close-up of one of them. Another question. The air temperature near the glacier, is it colder near the glacier?
It wasn't so cold that we needed an insulated jacket.
No, I didn't notice that it, it probably was a little bit cooler, but it wasn't particularly noticeable for me. It's not like we walked over there and suddenly we're in a different climate zone. I mean, we had jackets prepared for various temperatures on the trip. And so I think that any difference in temperature by the glacier certainly wasn't anything I really noticed or bothered me.
Along with your waterproof, windproof jacket, shell jacket, having an insulated piece underneath, like some fleece or a lightweight down sweater, would probably be all you'd need.
Mm-hmm. Down sweater and a rain jacket will get you a long way. So now we're on kind of the last hiking leg of this trip. We're headed down to Lago Dixon, where we are going to catch that ferry. If I recall, we knew that what time the last ferry of the day was, and we were kind of legging it to make that last ferry. There is also Osteria there, which is absolutely beautiful. I really wish we had had time to poke around that, but because we were hurrying for that last ferry, we did not get a chance to have a look at it. I would certainly investigate this as a place to stay. It was gorgeous. And here is the ferry. You'll have plenty of company.
It must have held a couple hundred people.
It was a pretty good size transport. You can see a formation back here called the Cuernos. You get a gorgeous view of it going across that lake. And fortunately, we had a beautiful day to go across the lake as well.
And Cuernos are the horns.
Yeah, actually, Rod took this picture on one of your earlier trips. That was just such a nice picture of the Cuernos. I thought I'd throw that in there. Here's the inside of the bus, pretty typical for the kind of buses traveling around there. We are now taking a bus back from the ferry back to our starting point. So we're going to go through the park and you'll get some beautiful views. If you recognize this right here as you're going through the park. you're going to see the Torres del Paine again from a different angle. A lot of times you'll see, name of the animals.
Guanacos?
Guanacos, yeah. Guanaca. Animals that are like llama-like.
Guanaco.
Guanaco, okay. Thank you, Don. There they are as we're going through on the bus. It was a very nice trip. So that's it for Torres del Paine. We're going to head up now to Argentina. So we're leaving here. We're going to bus another 4 or 5 hours up to, we're going to bus up to El Calafate. We're going to spend the night at El Calafate, and then we're going to head to El Chalten. Here's our bus. There's a Guanaco. And the bus will stop periodically for a rest break. And this little guy apparently was used to bus passengers stopping to say hello. He probably got a few little treats. And here was the little stop that we were at. It was hard to resist. It was really fortunate, charming little place to stop. Everybody snacked a little bit, hopped back on the bus. And here is when we arrived in El Calafate. This is the little hotel we stayed at. I've listed the names and the contact information for the hotels we stayed at. If they're of interest to you, you can find them on the web. Just to kind of give you an example, though, this is pretty typical. There are lots and lots of little hotels, Osteria, like this one in El Calafate. We actually stayed there on the way to the Monte Fitzroy, and this is the room that we had, and we stayed there again on the way back, and this is the room that we had. Do you recall how expensive it was?
I don't.
I'm thinking it was a little bit less than $100, maybe 80 US at the time. This is
The Merino Glacier.
the Merino Glacier, which you can see from El Calafate. You can take a bus out there. I would recommend that you do that. We did not have time on this trip to do it. But
Well, if you do go here, you can hear the ice calving off the glacier, and it sounds like dynamite going off. And the big surge waves will go through the water when you have these massive ice chunks falling over. And what the Merino Glacier will do is it will close off one of the lakes, and the water will rise about 80 feet and then break through in this big tidal wave that goes across Lago Argentina. And in a previous kayaking expedition, I was here and hoping it wouldn't break through when I was kayaking close to it.
Lots of little restaurants and tourist places in El Calafate. This one was particularly interesting because you see all those steam tables had food from pretty much every different country. I hadn't expected to go and find a lot of Asian food in El Calafate, but all kinds of foods were there and all kinds of people from all kinds of places. So now we have traveled up to our jumping off point in Argentina, where we're going to start the hike to Monte Fitzroy. And this is El Chalten. Now, this is El Chalten in 2007, 2008. I understand it's quite a bit more populous now. It's grown quite a bit.
And when I was there in 1992, there was like only 4 buildings.
Mm-hmm. So this is a town that really is there to cater to people like us that want to go there and enjoy the outdoors, hiking and climbing. And so there are plenty of places to stay. This is a motel where we stayed. I think the information is in the handout. It's the Fitzroy Inn. There were at that time plenty of outdoor stores, once again, for whatever you needed to, whatever you forgot, you can pick up there. Nice little places to eat, and no doubt more now. So now we're in the national park, and in this national park, we were advised that you do not have to treat your water, that you can drink the water from every waterway in the park. That's an unusual situation for me. I'm very used to treating my drinking water, but I did want to try drinking the water and see if anything happened. And so we did try the water there. It tasted great. I never got sick, so I believe them. So here is El Calafate. We traveled up here to El Chalten. This is where we are right now. And we are going to hike first to Cerro Torre. We experienced probably some beautiful weather the first couple of days. We did pick up some windy weather. I think I mentioned in the handout that the region refers to the wind there as the broom of God. And I can agree with that. It can get pretty brisk.
We only really had one day that was really windy.
We had a couple days, and one, it was driving some rain. That was even more interesting. Bring good rain gear. Beautiful hike on the way in. Those look like collapsible poles to me. Oh, that's 12 years ago, that's why. There, we are now looking at Cerro Torre.
Which used to be called the impossible climb. It's just this huge rock spire sticking straight up. But it has been climbed now numerous times, but it is still one of the world classics.
Rod did not make an attempt on it on this trip. And this is the way you're walking in. You've got it right in your field of view as you're walking along the trail here. Pretty hard to beat that.
And then further to the north is the Fitzroy. You can't see it in this view.
Beautiful little peak. Now we're going to be walking along this lake for a while. It's just hard to, it's so nice to remember this was such a beautiful hike, such a beautiful place. Kind of lucky happenstance there. This is, I love this. This is Monte Fitzroy right there. See it? This is actually Poinsonneau, which is a smaller peak next to Mount Fitzroy, which is right there. Ah, there's the Fitzroy right there.
And we kept waiting for the clouds to clear the Fitzroy, and we never really saw it.
So this particular attempt at getting a picture of Fitzroy that was so elusive made me really appreciate outdoor photographers who wait for days for the right shot. I mean, every time you look at a Jimmy Chin shot, he didn't just snap that on the fly. There are people lying on their belly or laying around in a tent for days looking for the right shot here, because even me with my little point and shoot could not get the Fitzroy to pop out of the clouds. That's about the best picture I got right there. Oh, there it is again. Now this is Poinsonneau, its little neighbor, and there's the Fitzroy back there. I kept trying. So I stole this picture from the internet so you could see what it looks like. There it is.
Those peaks seem to be a magnet for clouds.
They just are. Mountains are like that. This one I stole from the internet as well. You can really see it there. And we ultimately did see it as we got closer. This one I stole from the internet just because it was fun, showing the alpenglow on the mountain. I did actually finally get a picture of the Fitzroy here. This was hiking on the way out. I had to turn around, and finally, when I wasn't trying, there it was out of the clouds. It's no Jimmy Chin shot, but I was happy to at least get one where it showed up. This is the campground at the base of Poinsonneau. Very utilitarian campground. The night we spent there, it was raining, and we found out our tent leaked. That was one of those long nights waiting to wake up and see how wet you were in the morning. But I knew we were hiking out that day.
It turned out our single wall tent was pitched under a tree that was channeling a waterfall down on our tent.
It was, yeah. It was a very long night, but we dried out the next day and we didn't have to set up in the rain, so that was good. Nice, interesting campground, though. Right at the base, as I said, of Poinsonneau. You can see in this picture hiking out that I have the rain pants on, the rain jacket. This was the windy day where it was kind of driving needle-like rain horizontal at us.
And we saw some people coming up with, instead of having their good Gore-Tex rain suits, they had pieces of plastic and they had their shorts, and we were wondering if they would survive.
Yeah, they were coming up from town here because this is the view of the end of the hike coming back down into El Chalten. And some people were day hiking, I hope, up the trail in not particularly protective clothing. So that's it for that section. That is the place, though, I wanted to remind you that when you're looking at your bus schedules, if you're crossing into Argentina, they were operating on a different daylight savings time than Chile was. And we didn't take that into account when we were looking at our bus schedule. So I would suggest that whatever time of year you're there, you will make sure if you cross the border that they are on, that you understand what time they're using. So we're now coming back down, busing through Puerto Natales and back down to Puntarenas, where we were going to catch our flight back out. So here's another shot from the bus. The bus rides are long, but they're fascinatingly beautiful. The terrain is gorgeous, and you'll see kind of a lot, and you will see some animals on the way. Now we're back down in Puntarenas, which is a bustling end of the world town. A lot of things going on there. If you will notice right here, this is a North Face store. If you remember, we always try to visit the outdoor stores. So there we are. I also show you to have a look at the electrical infrastructure in some of these towns is always kind of interesting. This is a museum in town. There are a lot of historical places to go. You can spend, I would like to have spent more time in Puntarenas exploring. But one thing you don't want to miss is an opportunity to see the penguins. There are a million different penguin tours that you can take in different penguin locations. It kind of doesn't matter. I think we took the closest one and the shortest one. You just want to see the little critters. I could have stayed there all day watching them. They were so cute.
There was a boat that went out to an island with a lot of penguins on that we wanted to take, but we weren't able to get on it. But one of the highlights of the trip is definitely
the penguins. You want to see them. I remember, I wish I had a video of this. What was happening here is that this little row of penguins was walking along in single file. And this guy, the leader, would walk for about 5 or 6 feet. Everybody would walk behind him, and he would stop and sit down like he's doing right here. And everybody would stop and sit down until he got up and walked another 5 or 6 feet, and everybody would follow him, and then everybody would sit down. It was very, very cute. So now we're back in Puntarenas exploring, and we found this little restaurant, which I will recommend. It's called La Tasca. It sits on the 2nd floor and overlooks a beautiful town square. And you can get this, which is the paella at that restaurant, which was outstanding.
Did we go back again and have it again?
We did, yes, we did. We I mentioned the hotel that we stayed at in Puntarenas, just because if you're looking for one, that one worked. I gave you the name of it, Hotel Finisterre, which is, of course, end of the earth. But there are lots and lots of hotels there. The only one I can really mention that we stayed at, obviously, is in our handout. And that, if there are any more questions. How was the food? Yeah, interesting timing for that. You know, it's like food on any trip. You'll find your exciting places like La Tasca, and then your kind of run-of-the-mill places. The one thing you want to probably avoid is any kind of a restaurant that looks like American. There will be McDonald's and American chains. I don't even think they're good in this country, but they're really bad in other countries. So I would advise that you stay with the local ones. But I thought the food was great.
In Puerto Natales, the paella restaurants really good.
Yes, there's a lot. If you are a red meat eater, you are in heaven in Patagonia, because there are beautiful grill restaurants with lots of wonderful options. And I think I mentioned the name of that one in Puerto Natales that was Don Jorge. That was really good. So there are lots of options for foods. And because this area is so heavily touristed for people that are hardcore outdoor people or not, there's just a lot of tourists there. So you're going to find a lot of options. At this point, it's been so long since I've been there, I can't really give any serious recommendations, but God bless the internet. You can hop on there and do your restaurant research before you head down there.
So that paella, evidently it has scallops, mussels, and what were the red things? Crab?
That's what it looks like to me. Yeah.
Maybe some shrimp too.
Saffron, peas, whatever. It was
delicious.
One of the better ones. Yeah. Any other questions? We're good. Okay. I will thank Adon for helping us out. Here is our last shot. This is one of the major reasons you want to go there. We're more than happy to answer any questions, you want to stop by the store, give us a call. We're happy to share any information that we can to make your trip a little bit better. And we'll thank you for joining us.
And these presentations are ongoing for the next 20 days. So watch the schedule. Some additional presentations may pop up. Thank you.
Thank you, and stay safe.